Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Harrison Ford Fuming, his Yellowstone spin-off 1923, was killed by producer Taylor Sheridan. Harrison Ford is said to be furious over producer Taylor Sheridan pulling the plug on his Yellowstone spin-off 1923 even before its second season even airs, News.com can reveal. After a 2-year wait, 1923 returns to the small screen on February 23. But sources claim that franchise mastermind Sheridan, 54, has already said so long to the hit Western, which stars Ford, 82, as Jacob Dutton, grandfather of Kevin Costner's Yellowstone rancher John Dutton. An insider said, Taylor feels like he told the story he wanted to tell and is done with it. He's sticking to his guns even though he got a lot of pressure to continue, since 1923 is a big moneymaker. Some sources claimed a lot of that pressure came from the shrinking star, who has reportedly made around $1 million per episode to star alongside British film legend Helen Mirren in the prequel about the Dutton family's rise to power and riches. A friend squealed that Ford loved that the show was shot on location in Butte, Montana, where the seasoned pilot could make a quick flight from his home in Jackson Hole, which he shares with wife Callista Flockhart. But the pal also said that even more than the fat paycheck and convenience, Harrison loved the physical demands the show put on him. They added, at his age, it was good incentive to stay in shape. Harrison grew up loving Western movies and TV shows, and getting paid millions to play cowboy was just catnip to him. The confidant further claimed that feisty Ford butted heads with Sheridan over his decision to wrap the show. But sources close to the production pushed back and said there is no truth that there's a feud between the two men. While the actor's rep insisted it's untrue that Ford is upset about the show's ending, the close pal dished. Harrison said he even came up with ideas to extend the series, but it was like talking to a brick wall with Taylor. Getting thrown off his horse is leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. As the sun is beginning to set on the limited series, Ford's co-star praised his acting in the upcoming and final season. Mirren, 79, said she noticed something rather magical happened with his acting while working on the second season together. The actress said, he was a huge star and he really didn't want to be. He wanted to just be a quiet person getting on with life, and of course, that's kind of impossible. Something rather magical has happened to Harrison, especially with his history of, being the dude, the bloke, the fabulous action guy, the funny guy, the cool guy. Now there's this open road to his inner feelings, which he is absolutely unafraid of expressing. It's just a true, quick, instinctive emotional reaction to things, without sentimentality. Harrison Ford had been furious before. He'd faced down Hollywood executives who wanted to tinker with his characters, studio heads who didn't understand storytelling, and even skeptical critics who doubted his career longevity. But this was something else entirely. The legendary actor was steaming mad, pacing across his expansive Montana ranch, a setting that had been perfect preparation for his role as Jacob Dutton in 1923, the acclaimed Yellowstone prequel series. Ford had signed on for the series with enthusiasm, eager to sink his teeth into a character as rugged and commanding as the land he fought to protect. And now, with the show's anticipated second season suddenly canceled by creator and showrunner Taylor Sheridan, Ford found himself boiling over. This is ridiculous, Ford growled, gripping a half-finished script for what should have been the next season. His wife, Callista Flockhart, watched him from the porch, knowing better than to interrupt one of his infamous stormy moods. When news broke that Sheridan had pulled the plug on 1923, citing creative differences and budget constraints, Ford was blindsided. He had invested himself in the character of Jacob Dutton, and more importantly, he had committed his time, a precious commodity for an actor who had nothing left to prove. With an impressive resume spanning Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Blade Runner, and more, Ford didn't need 1923, but he wanted it. "Taylor's gone and done it," he muttered. "He killed a damn good story." The truth, of course, was more complicated. Sheridan, known for his uncompromising vision and meticulous storytelling, had clashed with Paramount over budget negotiations. The series, sprawling and cinematic, had already cost the studio a fortune. While Sheridan had the freedom to craft Yellowstone and its spin-offs as he pleased, even he wasn't immune to financial reality. And despite Ford's star power, even he couldn't strong-arm the industry into making something that had already been deemed unfeasible. But that didn't mean he wouldn't try. Ford had already made a few calls. Helen Mirren, his 1923 co-star and on-screen wife, had been just as shocked by the abrupt cancellation. "Bloody shame," she had said in her crisp British accent. "We had more to say. Jacob and Kara's story wasn't finished." "Damn right, it wasn't," Ford had replied. The thing was, Ford wasn't used to projects falling apart midstream. He had navigated Hollywood for decades, surviving shifting industry trends, changing audience tastes, and even his own occasional reluctance to return to past roles, Han Solo cough. But 1923 had been different. He had felt the weight of its history, the depth of its storytelling, the sheer scope of what had been planned. Sheridan had crafted a world that Ford had thrown himself into completely, only to watch it vanish overnight. Ford's frustrations weren't just personal. He knew the fans were upset. Social media had exploded after the announcement, with viewers demanding answers. Had Paramount lost faith in the show? Was there a secret rift between Ford and Sheridan? Was 1923 collateral damage in the ongoing behind-the-scenes drama of Yellowstone itself? Speculation was rampant, and Ford wasn't in the mood to play damage control. One particularly bold fan had tweeted, "Harrison Ford should just pull a Star Wars and force his way into Sheridan's office with a rewritten script and a demand to finish 1923. Ford had chuckled at that. If only it were that easy. Taylor Sheridan, despite Ford's frustrations, wasn't some studio lackey who could be bullied into reviving a show. He was a storyteller with a plan, and if 1923 had been sacrificed, it was likely for a reason. But Ford wasn't convinced that reason was good enough. So he did what any old-school Hollywood star would do. He took matters into his own hands. A week after the news of 1923's demise had gone public, Ford requested a sit-down with Sheridan. The two men met at Sheridan's Texas ranch, a sprawling property where the showrunner lived and worked, crafting the Yellowstone universe with the precision of a master sculptor. Ford arrived in a mood, stepping out of his private plane with the kind of presence that made lesser men reconsider their decisions. Sheridan was already waiting for him, dressed in his usual cowboy attire, a man as much a part of his stories as the characters he created. He greeted Ford with a nod and a measured smile. "Heard you're upset?" Sheridan said, leaning against a fence post. "You could say that," Ford replied, taking off his aviators. "I'm not done being Jacob Dutton." Sheridan exhaled slowly, measuring his words. "Look, Harrison, you know how this business works. We were over budget. Studio didn't want to cough up the extra money. I had to make a decision." "You made the wrong one," Ford shot back. "You don't just end a story like that. Not with the audience invested, not with me invested." Sheridan studied him for a long moment. "I get it. I do, but if the network isn't behind it, there's nothing I can do. You think I wanted to kill 1923? Ford ran a hand through his hair, letting out a slow breath. "Then we find another way." Sheridan's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "Another network, a streaming deal, something," Ford pressed. "You don't just kill a show that works. You find a way to make it work." Sheridan sighed, glancing toward the horizon. "You really believe in this that much?" Ford nodded. "Damn right I do." Silence stretched between them. Then Sheridan smirked. "You're a stubborn son of a gun." Ford shrugged. "I get results." The next day, rumors started swirling. Maybe 1923 wasn't as dead as people thought. Maybe Sheridan, the maestro of the Yellowstone Empire, was reconsidering his decision. Maybe, just maybe, Harrison Ford had done what he always did, refused to take no for an answer. Whether 1923 would rise from the ashes remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: Harrison Ford wasn't going down without a fight.